You're listening to the audio portion of Workshop Wednesdays. Workshop Wednesdays is a free live discussion about topics affecting accountants, bookkeepers, and business owners. You can join the ABO group in Facebook to participate live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Just search for ABBO in Facebook. This podcast is brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, where you will learn, grow, and build a thriving bookkeeping practice. We have hundreds of lessons with almost every aspect of the industry. Start your free month today at Schoolofbookkeeping.com. Oh, welcome to another Workshop Wednesdays, where it's casual conversations for serious workflows, brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, allowing you to learn QuickBooks your way. Rachel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. All right. Yeah, it's an interesting day here in the RV park that we're staying in. It's called Upheaval Day, which is
Ooh.
basically the end of the adult winter summer camp.
Oh.
So they had a parade already, and they have
Wow. Okay.
human horse racing, and we go.
Come in light of the change of the daylight savings.
Yeah, and it's when most of the snowbirds are going to start trickling away, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's what's happening here. So if you hear some hooting and hollering, it's not us. It's someone else. But we are actually trying to do the live stream on Instagram today. If you follow us on Instagram of School of Bookkeeping, there on Instagram, we are going live there as well, because that's exactly where you want to have a casual conversation is on the gram, right?
Yep.
Okay. Today we're going to be we did a workshop a couple years ago on this topic, and it stands to be updated because I had a remote session with a fellow accountant who was having some trouble with daily sales summaries because a family member of his owns several Subway franchises, and he was doing some accounting for them and getting them set up in QuickBooks Online, and he's a more comfortable in desktop, one of those individuals, which is totally fine. But we had done a workshop a couple years ago about doing a daily sales summary, and based on that interaction, I wanted to talk about some of the updates that we discovered during that session. And I looked at the workshop that we did, and I would tend to say I gave some wrong information.
Oh.
Not necessarily wrong information, but there's a but to
Well,
the whole.
technology changes a lot too.
Yeah.
Things are different even from 6 months ago.
Yeah. And so you do a lot with point of sale systems, Rachel, and that sort of thing. Do you use daily sales summaries as a way to enter the day's sales, or what's your experience with using daily sales summaries? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we do, because I like to do what a lot of people refer to as real-time bookkeeping and accounting. We do a lot of accounting too, not just the bookkeeping. And so at my firm, I sell my services as real time. And what that means is maybe not with everything like up to the second, but at least up to the prior day of the daily sales being posted. But what that means is, instead of waiting until the end of the month and then getting all of the sales revenue data for the entire month and then posting it behind you, we're posting it every single day as we go. So that way at the end of the month, which is, and the reason that I say month is that's usually an accounting period, and it's very standard for people to have in their fiscal year 12 accounting periods. And so at the end of the month, oftentimes you can pull the sales data in a month report and post it for a month, but then during that current month, you don't really have a complete set of financials up to the prior day until the month is over, and then you can look in the past. And with automation and a lot of the technological innovations that have come with accounting and bookkeeping, for all of our clients, we post everything in real time. So whether that means individual sales transactions, and we won't do that if there's a high volume, but or if there's high volume, or if it just makes sense to do it, we'll do a daily sales summary. And that could be a couple different ways of doing it in QuickBooks Online. But I find that to be much more helpful because then you can compare weeks, you can look at weekends, you can look at differences that are happening by the day instead of just by the month.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and talk about what the general of QuickBooks entering a daily, and talk about some of those. Am I frozen?
Yeah, you were frozen a little bit, but you seem to be okay now.
Okay, because I got an alert that said, oops, connected, trying to connect. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So let me share my screen, which will probably cause some challenges with that as well, or maybe some lag. Okay. Instantaneous. That's nice. All right. So the whole idea here is when you're in this article, the essence is that you're not necessarily tracking every single sale. You just want to create a daily sale for the day. And the
Yeah,
more
and that's
common,
appropriate because what if let's say it's a Subway franchise and you
yeah,
made 479 sales that day, individual sales transactions. You don't want to input
yeah.
every single one of those. You just want a total for the day.
And typically this situation will come up when they're tracking their daily sales, when they're actually ringing up sales in something else. And that could be online, that could be in a point of sale system, that could
Mm-hmm.
be a variety of ways. And the daily sales summary will summarize that. There's
Mm-hmm.
no better way to say it. I hate using the definition and the answer in the same question, but it will summarize that daily sales into whatever, as much detail or generalization as they see fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do they need to know out of those sales? And the history of this comes from an old cash register, right? Like
Yeah.
the NCR, you're ringing up the sales, chunk, making those noises. But at the end of the day, you do typically this process of zeroing out the cash register so that
Yep.
cash register is ready for tomorrow's
And
sales.
balancing your till. Oh, I love that.
Uh, exactly.
I'm so weird.
Historically, that was called Z out, right? To
Yeah.
zero out, turn the key in the cash register to Z out, and then it will spit out in the register tape the day's sales summarized however you see fit, right? Now, with point of sale systems and Square and Lightspeed and all of those things, that that zeroing out was not as structured as needed to be, right? But you still want to do something at the end of the day to be ready for the next day, especially when you have a cash drawer, which
Yeah.
making change and all of that stuff, which is typically what happens in a retail establishment. They have to zero out the drawer and count the money and account for the overages and shortages. If there is some fraud or theft
Yeah.
at the cash register of skimming the till or dropping the quarters, whatever the case may be, you want to account for that. And typically a daily sales summary will suffice for that, because in this gentleman's scenario, you don't necessarily want to know how many turkey bacon clubs were sold because they're not tracking all of that in their QuickBooks. They're
Right.
just sandwich sales versus beverage or cookies or however much detail they would have to or they would want to get out of their daily sales summary. That's where QuickBooks comes in, right?
Yeah, and I should
So
say that's very common now in kind of the way that the technology has moved, in that we're recording the financial data in QuickBooks. And a lot of times we're doing the other analytical stuff in maybe a different app, the point of sale system, where that stuff is recorded at the granular level. And then you can compare your turkey bacon clubs to your
yeah,
tuna.
exactly. And really, QuickBooks is that passing of the baton to matching the reality of what it is that happened in reality
Yep,
to the next action that
yep,
that happens, right? They've collected money from that day's sales. What happens next? Right? It's
yep,
going to go into the bank, and that's what QuickBooks is concerned about. And typically, your cash register or your point of sale system doesn't care what happens with that money after that.
yep.
So, this is the process that allows you to track that inside of your QuickBooks. So, the first thing is you set up some kind of customer to account for counter sales or the point of sale system. Then you set up accounts for those daily sales, and this gives you an idea of how to do that sort of thing. And I tried to put in the article link. I'll do it
Oh
again.
yeah, it's there.
Another error. Yeah, my side is giving me all sorts of errors in the studio there.
It looks like it did post, and I'm
Okay,
checking the link right now.
okay, perfect. And then you set up some accounts to be able to track those things too. And then you start setting up daily sales items, right? So you got to go into the products and services list to set up as much detail or generalization as you want. I had a client who was like a mailboxes, etc. type of store, and he was using a point of sale system, and he wanted to track fax sales, and he had little mailboxes, and he wanted to track those. So we had to create multiple items in our sales summary transaction to account for all of that information, right? So that is where we then create those items to add to the sales summary to give that breakdown of how much detail that we actually want to know. Because they're items, they're products and services, we can force or we can tell QuickBooks what account to track those things to. It could be just something as general as taxable sales versus non-taxable sales, and then you are able to create an item that's taxable and an item that's not taxable. And we'll talk specifically about the taxability and the sales tax implications because that is the updated information that we need to add about all of this with doing this inside of QuickBooks Online.
Dan, can you also
Because
just really quick before you go any further, can you explain when, because the scenario that you're talking about is because you want to track the financial data, you want to track
mhm,
your revenue, and you want to track potentially sales tax info and et cetera, et cetera. But when you say product service items, you have to create a product service item because that's going to go on the sales receipt that you're going to create or the journal entry or whatever. Then a lot of people get confused and they think that they need to turn on inventory because they're recording
mhm,
things. And explain that in this situation that you're talking about, it has nothing to do with inventory,
yeah,
and a non-inventory item would be the item that you're creating, because I find myself cleaning up a lot of that.
yeah,
And I think that's a fork in the road where a lot of people go wrong.
yeah. And we're going to have a topic where to your point, how do you turn off inventory after you've turned it on, maybe mistakenly, or maybe I
Oh,
didn't know any
nice. That was
better.
one of the ones I requested. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll definitely dive pretty deep into that. But
Yeah, because
yes,
that's
these
something that
items,
I'm seeing a lot of. People are very confused about that. We do a
yeah,
lot of error correction.
yeah, and they don't even mention here what kind of items to actually
I
set these up
know. And
as,
so that's why I
which,
thought, you know what? Let's take that
you know,
opportunity.
and this is one of the nuances of QuickBooks Online doing these daily sales summaries
Yeah.
when it comes to sales tax, as we'll unpack that as well. But yes, you would set up these items as either non-inventory items or service items. There's no difference in the how QuickBooks handles these items other than calling them service items or non-inventory. As long as you don't call them inventory items, you're in the clear, right? But you only have three choices when it comes to what type of item, with the
Yeah.
exception of a bundle, but that's not really an item type. It's just a
Yeah, because when we're
different type.
talking about this daily sales summary, it's really just to record the financial
Yep.
information. We're not recording how many widgets were sold.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing.
And in this article, it talks about creating these items ahead of time. Daily sales income, you point it to your daily sales income account, and description would be daily sales income. And then you've got other items of overage and shortages and what accounts that they point to, because what you're ultimately creating here is a sales transaction that amounts to nothing. Because what you're doing is you're putting the sales revenue items at the top, and then just like your Z out store close tape will do, it will itemize out how much money was collected by credit card, check, cash, gift card, whatever the tender type is for those sales. And ultimately, it will net out to nothing because you're handling the accounting of that through these items on the transaction itself. And they give an example down here at the bottom of this article, which is nice because it gives this example of they had $1,177.20 in total reported sales. That was $1,080 of sales income plus 97.20 in sales tax, right? And then your cash register count was $327. There was $316 collected by and 10 cents by check. Who takes checks anymore? I don't know. And
This subway does.
this, yeah, this company in this article, Visa Mastercard, and again, if you have those separated out, you can certainly do Visa sales versus Mastercard sales if you wanted to. But they combine them in $343.35. Amex was $87.20. There was a cash shortage of $16.35, and another Discover of the exact same dollar amount of. I make it duplicate, but okay. But Discover and American Express were $87.20. So you can see here in this example, if I make it bigger, whoop, oh, trying to, there we go, trying to center it. The amount of the sales receipt is nothing, right? But all of these individual items come in. So there's the 1080 for daily sales, and then the cash, the check, Visa, Mastercard, American Express, Discover. They are all negatives on this sales summary to account for. All right, this is the income, the revenue, and notice the tax check mark here, and then the daily sales zeroes that out, Z out. There's our Z out of zeroing it out to nothing. And the accounting is handled by these items on the transaction themselves. So, what this allows you to do is to point cash, check, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, those items as going into undeposited funds, right? Most companies, most retail companies don't go running down to the bank with $327 and exactly their cash till of $327 down to the bank that day or the next day. They might wait several days to then take all of the cash that they want, whatever they're leaving behind in the cash drawer, and then making one lump cash deposit
Yeah.
maybe every other day or 2 days. Or this will allow them then to create a deposit for whatever that is. And because they're choosing the memo, will have cash, check, a Visa, MasterCard in the item, they'll be able to know which ones are cash and which ones are check to make the appropriate deposit and put it into take that pass that baton that QuickBooks and their point of sale system are now doing that, right? And if that's all that you're doing in QuickBooks, that's totally fine. Now, the caveat of all of this is sales tax, right? Because, and this is where this story came up, why this topic became such a, we need to do this, because he came to me because he's trying to do sales tax filing.
Hmm.
And so I've got a transaction here in my demo here of wait, I did it. Oh, where was it? Oh, darn it. I'm going to open it. So I was using an item on a daily sales transaction. There's that Three Musketeers bar. It's $1,000, but it's taxable,
Ooh.
right?
It must be Dubai chocolate.
Yes, it's
That's a TikTok
fancy
reference.
chocolates.
That's a teen TikTok reference.
All right. And then I put thing about tips. I put a tips in here, and then it's just a Visa payment. In the grand scheme of things, this was taxable, and it showed down here at the bottom that $70 was collected in tax because it was sold in Florida, and this particular item was taxable, right? So there's my sales, which goes to the right place. It's calculating taxes. But when I go and look at my Florida Department of Revenue tax report, my gross sales is negative $70. My non-taxable sales is negative $1,070, and my taxable amount is $1,000, which, now this is very confusing. Like, how do I tell the state that I have negative $70 in sales, in gross sales, and negative $1,070 in non-taxable sales? Because that's not true. And that's where the daily sales summary in QuickBooks Online gets yeah, but
Mm.
if you're using QuickBooks Online to help you file and remit and pay your sales tax, don't do it this way, right?
Oh.
Because these items on here for anything that's a negative, which is the tender types or gift cards or what have you, there's sales items to QuickBooks, because there is no such thing in QuickBooks as a QuickBooks Online as a payment item, right?
Mm.
QuickBooks Desktop allows you to set up items as payment items and put them as items like this onto the sales receipt. And they're treated differently in QuickBooks Desktop than they are in QuickBooks Online. So QuickBooks Online doesn't, because it's your only choice is service, non-inventory, or inventory items as items. The accounting is fine. It's the sales tax that's wrong. So, yeah, Jamie's like, oh,
Yeah, okay, quick question though. So what
yeah,
if you didn't do the negative item to throw off your sales and you deposited to a different clearing account?
yeah, you'd have to do it that way. The other option is, instead of doing it as a sales receipt, do it as an invoice for daily sales, and
Yeah,
then
that
you
way it's
enter it.
obviously going to go to in
Yeah,
deposited funds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jamie's moral of the story: if
Yeah.
you're using sales
Don't do
tax,
sales summary that
don't
way.
do sales summary this way.
But I know that a lot of people did and a lot of people do. And
Right.
in a lot of kind of when I first started in QBO and a lot of the tutorials and trainings and stuff that I did, this is very standard. And
Yeah.
so
Even
as an
even
accountant, I
QuickBooks.
developed different ways of doing it, and I use a lot of clearing accounts, and so we don't really do it this way, but a lot of people do. And so it's really helpful to learn the hack for this.
Yeah. Yeah, and even here, right, in the QuickBooks article, they talk nothing about sales tax other than the fact that on their sales receipt it is taxable. So that means that transaction is calculating sales tax. The
Yeah, and
challenge
people are going
now,
to automatically try and use it
yeah,
unknowingly for sales tax, and they
yeah.
will see that their reports are off.
And the challenge is there's going to be a rounding issue when this all becomes settled, because it's going to summarize all of your taxable sales into a taxable subtotal, which is not going to be likely your daily sales. There's going to be a rounding of cents as those smaller transactions, right? Like you have a Subway sandwich of, I don't know, what is it? It used to be $5 for a foot long, but not anymore. Maybe a $5 6 inch. But anyway, at those smaller sales at the sales tax percentage, whatever that is in the state that you're in, is going to have typically a rounding issue when it comes to summarizing all of those sales. So if I had, 40 sales at $20 a sale, that's going to be, it's going to calculate the sales tax on $20 or whatever the amount is, rather than $1,000 times the global uh, addition of that. So that's another thing to that will be in consideration when you have that, because you're going to have a discrepancy between the amount of sales that was collected and the amount of sales that QuickBooks is going to calculate.
Yeah,
And
report it due.
in this guy's situation, he the Subway franchise had a connector to send daily sales summaries to QuickBooks. And what it will typically do is it will put the sales tax that was collected as a line item, an additional line item, so that it's explicitly said what was actually collected. So then if you're using sales tax, then that's going to make it even more complicated,
Yep.
right?
Because it's not going to
Because
tally it up in the sales tax center. It's going to collect it like a regular GL account.
right, to add another caveat to all of this, the amount that's actually collected versus the amount that's actually calculated, when it comes time to file and remit your sales tax, you may find that there's some sense discrepancies to account for as well on top of that. So if you're using sales tax and you're using and wanting to summarize the daily sales, the best option is not to use sales receipts to do that, because those payment items are going to screw up your sales tax. That's the sales tax reports, right? So by having this guy, whoops, yeah, this report here will show horribly wrong, right? So one of the point of sale systems that I've been working with is Lightspeed, and they send sales summaries over to QuickBooks. It's really cool because they will send sales summaries over to QuickBooks as soon as you close the register in Lightspeed. So
Ooh,
you don't have to tell it to go over, right? They just show up. Now those sales
auto
summary,
sync.
yes,
I love
those
that.
sales those sales summaries come over to QuickBooks based off of how you. This is an example of what those sales summaries look like. You'll notice none of that. You don't see any payment methods on these things. So it actually will send these sales summaries over as invoices, and the payment methods that are utilized will automatically get applied to this invoice and lower the balance. So you'll
Mhm.
see on the invoice itself inside of QuickBooks the payments that are there, and then they go to undeposited funds uh, for depositing. So that's really a cool thing uh, that you can do. And it sounds like my headset is going to die, and
Mm.
somebody's talking to me. But you're able to specify that in the day in the preferences inside of Lightspeed. So that's one of the really cool things that Lightspeed will do is take care of these daily sales summaries for you by using QuickBooks Online the way it's designed to be used,
Yeah.
uh, by doing these as invoices as opposed to sales receipts,
Yeah, and a lot of
because you're
other connectors will do that too. And the great thing is, like you're explaining, and then they'll mark it paid. And then that
Mhm.
way, the actual payment that's coming through the bank feeds will find that payment and it'll match, which is really
Yep.
great. So that way, the work is really in the setup, in the mapping, you're setting it all up, but then what you're doing the rest of the time is just match, which is really great. And then I'm guessing Lightspeed is like everybody else in that they're posting the sale based on how the payout is coming. So what I mean by that is if it's paying out a day's worth of sales, that's the sales posting that's going to post ahead of time. And it, like, say for example, the total sales that be sold is going to be $572. That's the total credit card amount or whatever that'll come through the bank feed. And so it'll know
Yeah.
that's the amount on the correct side to be expected. That's a really bad way of explaining that. But anyway,
I knew what you were
basically, like,
saying.
all that to say it's going to post what it knows the money coming through will be expecting, which is
Yes.
really
And
nice. And on a
on top,
daily basis, if you've told that system I want daily payouts, that's how it will post it.
yes. And another cool thing about Lightspeed, I'm going to put a little QR code here because they're actually having a promo uh, for free. Get Lightspeed for free for 3 months. It expires the end of the month. So you can, if you know anyone or if you are someone that might want to check out Lightspeed, why not check it out for free? Another cool thing they do is they have included 5 sessions to make sure you understand how to use Lightspeed. So their implementation is really cool. I sat in on with a client. They really answered a lot of their questions. They're not clear on the QuickBooks integration, and that's why I wanted to sit in with them to make
Hmm.
sure that those things how they show up inside of QuickBooks. But the problem with any new software is if you don't know how to use it, you don't use it, and then you never use it, and then don't you get frustrated, and they charge for the implementation, but they credit it back. So it's a really cool
Nice.
option that they have and they give away their time to make sure that you're able to understand how to get the most out of it. And they have their Lightspeed payments for credit card processing. Uh, and because of their integration, they account for the fees as well for the
That's
Lightspeed payments.
awesome. Yeah,
So,
you can't not have that.
yeah, the, everything is most everything is then handled for you by using the Lightspeed connector. They have their own e-commerce platform. They can integrate with Shopify, and those that information can then be sent over into your QuickBooks as well. Some really cool things that Lightspeed does to be able to set up and not even have to use a daily or create these daily sales
No?
summaries from scratch. So that's our updated daily sales summary workshop. Appreciate you joining us here today, Rachel. Any final thoughts on daily sales summaries?
Oh, no, other than I know a lot of people still use them, and I know that they're important. And we use a lot of them with automation. And if anybody needs help,
Call me. Yeah. So next week, we're speaking of daily sales and summaries. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Shopify and Amazon connections inside of QuickBooks in the commerce, and kind of
yeah,
unpacking that as well,
which we use
because
that too.
yep. So hopefully you're going to have a great day. I'm going to see about what kind of shenanigans the people in the RV park are up to. And we will see you next week on the Workshop Wednesday, and hope you all have a great day. And that wraps up another insightful episode of Workshop Wednesday, brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and took away some valuable tips and strategies to enhance your bookkeeping practice. Remember, if you want to stay ahead in the world of bookkeeping and accounting, be sure to visit Schoolofbookkeeping.com. With a wide range of courses, resources, and expert guidance, you'll find everything you need to sharpen your skills and boost your career. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and continue to bring you the best content every week. If you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover, reach out to us on social media or send us an email at support@schoolofbookkeeping.com. We love hearing from our listeners and are always looking for new ideas to explore. Thanks for tuning in to Workshop Wednesday. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep excelling in your bookkeeping journey. I'm Dan DeLong, and we'll see you next week.